Okay, so we're going to start chapter 5, which is actually kind of a short chapter, and it's on, it basically drills down more on what we've already done with our divergent and convergent. And the midterm will be through chapter 6 totals of the regular book here. So, oh shoot, let me change the settings. Okay, so we talked about this before, but didn't spend a ton of time on it. What was divergent thinking? Divergent thinking, Bobby.
The first part of like brainstorming, the thought process.
Okay, so trying to the first stage of the thought process, yeah. So you mentioned brainstorming. What do you mean by a brainstorming?
Like if you were in a group, you gather up all of the ideas and not throwing any of the ideas out.
Not thrown away. So we want lots of different stuff, right? So we're looking for a broad search of lots of different ideas, not caring really if they're crazy or otherwise. When we start to converge, we're starting to narrow things down, right? So we're kind of did a broad search. If we don't allow enough time, so the common mistake is that people short circuit the divergent part and they start to want to drive for a solution early. And why is that a problem? Right?
You may not get all of the possible solutions, or even not the best overall solution.
Or the best solution, yeah. There might be a better one out there. And so this is a real common thing, and we might start to miss out on some really nice options. So here's the 4 principles of divergent thinking. Defer judgment. What does that mean? We go to Matt. Matt, what do you think defer judgment would be? Like, don't judge me. What does that mean? Yeah, let's start with defer. What is kind of defer? If you defer something, what are you doing? It's a little different than differentiate. Anybody want to, if you have deferred maintenance for your car, what do you need to do probably? Or Gabe, you can put in whatever words you want.
Maybe if you're not quick to judge.
Not quick to judge, yeah, for sure. Deferred judgment is that you're not being quick to judge, yeah. So if you are deferring maintenance on your car, what are you doing? Are you fixing it up, or what are you doing? You're waiting, right? So deferring is waiting for longer. Oh, we'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow. Well, in this case, deferring judgment means when we have different ideas, we're not condemning them right away, right? So we're not judging and say, oh, that's stupid. That's a dumb idea. We're going to defer judgment on ideas as they come as a principle of divergent thinking. Go for quantity. What are we doing with quantity in the divergent phase of thinking, Cameron?
Get a lot of ideas.
Get a lot of them, right? So we're not turning down anything, so go for a lot. How many did I have you guys do? I can't remember what the exercise was, but I said come up with 30. How many of you were surprised when I said that? Right? Because so often we're like, okay, come up with some ideas, and then whatever it was, we start to do the normal ones, and you guys put like 5 or 10 down, and it's like, come up with 30. That's what we mean by going for quantity, right? We're gonna push ourselves, not be happy with settling for a minimal amount. We're gonna really push hard for a lot of quantity so that we don't overlook some possibilities that might be out there. Make connections. Make connections. How does that speak to you? Cameron, number between 3 and 8.
6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Carson. Make connections. No wrong answers here, but we're thinking about divergent principles. We've talked about different judgment. We're going for quantity, and now we want to make connections in this phase.
Connect two ideas together.
Okay, connect a couple ideas together. All right, so let's see. This just, I don't even know why this came out. This sounds dumb, so I'm already condemning my idea. What do you want for Easter dinner, Carson?
Easter dinner.
Yeah. What? Give me something you want for Easter dinner. What?
Lamb.
Lamb. Ooh. Okay. Rayleigh. Easter dinner. Mac and cheese. And not just any old. Sorry, I want to make sure we put grandma's mac and cheese is what you said, correct? Gabe. Easter dinner. Some ham. Let's go one more. Ricardo. Mashed potatoes. Okay. Now, after I corrected what I said, we're probably getting maybe a little bit hungry, although maybe I did lunch. How many of you had some different things coming to mind when you saw the word grandma? Right? That's why I put that word down, right? So divergent thinking, where we have grandmas, and then you might start to think, oh, my grandma makes the best ham, or maybe we should have a ham and cheese croissant or something. So making connections is kind of like looking at what you've got and try to connect them to add another thing. So we might have ham and cheese croissant. I don't think I want a croissant. Maybe something like that. So basically we said, oh, that and this gave me a third option. So now I've got 1, 2, and 3. If I'm going for quantity, then making connections can help you get more quantity, right? So that's why it's one of the principles of adding on more stuff. Okay, lastly, seek novelty. Talked about that word a couple times. Seeking novelty. Cordell.
Open to originality.
What?
Openness to originality.
Okay, originality. So novelty is just something kind of unique, right? It's original. So seeking novelty. How can we do that when we're coming up with lists, if we're going for quantities? What does seek novelty really mean then in this context of divergent thinking? Which one of these up here is the most novel? The grandma's mac and cheese, right? So it was okay for it to be descriptive with Rayleigh's grandma's mac and cheese, right? So seeking novelty, so we could maybe add more description to be a little bit different. We're embracing that when we might tend to shun it otherwise, right? It's like, oh, it's uncomfortable for me to think about original thoughts and unique things. Okay, now, what happens when we converge? So, do we naturally start to look at the shortcomings of something or the positives when we start evaluating something? Positives, or do we tend to point out the negatives? So kind of the negatives, right? It's almost human nature to kind of think about, oh, that's not going to work because of this. Once I started doing, once I first taught this class, which was probably 8 years ago, it is so funny, and that's why we're going to have some of these reflection things like the assignment that you guys have to actually reflect on. It might be your teams, it might be over the weekend with your family, and really hone into this stuff, and you'll be surprised at people's behavior and how they act. And it's like, oh, you're shutting down, you're thinking about the negatives or something. You'll start to kind of see it come out of conversation, and that's why we bring these up, because that's not what we want to do to come to some good ideas and new places. So what was the affirmative part then again, just to be crystal clear on this? Apply affirmative judgment. So we are getting into a judging phase now with converging. And what was the idea of affirming something, or affirmative judgment? Agreeing, okay. So it's hard to like agree and say yes if we're actually trying to weed some stuff out. Like we don't want this, so we're kind of to the phase where we've got a list of things and we're like, maybe we don't want this, or we're trying to narrow things down. So my point is, I think you're onto it with agreeing, but it's not like we're taking it. Matt?
Which one?
Okay, which one you can agree on the most? Good. So considering the strengths, if you see something positive, we might say, I like that because of this reason. Let's kind of, but it would be better maybe if it did this, right? So we can maybe modify some things is affirmative judgment. So trying to focus on the strengths of what was positive and then maybe do some modification. Did I see a hand up? Anybody else want to comment? Yeah,
I
Carson.
just said to take the good out of things.
Take the what?
Take the good out of things.
Yeah, take the good. Yeah, look for the positives rather than the negatives. Yes, as you're moving things out. All right, keep novelty alive. So now we're getting judgy, right? We've got our list for Easter, but we're want to keep novelty alive as we're saying, this sucks. I hate this. How do we keep novelty alive as we start to narrow down the list? Novelty. Keep novelty alive. How can we be creative about crossing it off the list? Let's think of it that way. Because novel was something unique, original, right? Like we just did. So we want to keep novelty alive. So how could we maybe not be so harsh with Ham? Give me an example of being creative and keeping novelty alive with Ham, even though we're kind of looking to just. Yeah, that includes ham or has ham flavor, or I don't know, maybe it's something else related to pigs, right? Oh, we could use some bacon though. Oh yeah, gotta have something with bacon. So maybe we, get some bacon things. So instead of crossing off ham, we're like, ham is great, but it tends to dry out sometimes. How about if we do some bacon, bacon wrapped something or other? Bacon wrapped asparagus. Right, so by thinking pig and by keeping novelty alive, we're kind of like taking the ham that might be dry because grandma's got great mac and cheese, but her ham is dry. That's probably not true, but maybe we can make something creative out of it. So as we're narrowing down the list to keep novelty alive, is to keep entertaining ideas. So we might have crossed it off, but we might try to modify or do something a little bit different. All right, check your objectives. As we have imagine this is a list of 45 things, right, for Easter dinner. As we've got a list of things, check your objectives. How does that hit you? What are we doing checking your objectives? Bobby?
I would say like with the huge list, and we'll just make sure that when we're doing crossing things off, that what we're keeping on there has a similarity with our goal in mind.
Okay, what is that goal? Let's make up an Easter dinner goal, I guess, might be one way to think about this, Carson.
Things that kids can eat.
Okay, good, yeah. So our objective is to have a happy family dinner with 20 people that is gonna be brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, 5-year-olds to 85-year-olds, right? And so if our objective is to have a nice family dinner, are the items on our list being consistent with that, right? Or as our little subcommittee of people started narrowing down, we just pick the stuff that we like, or whatever. Maybe we got too heavy with meat and, 3 or 4 of them are vegetarians. We have enough, veggie type of options for people coming. If our objective is to have a holistic family gathering that kind of caters to multiple people of different ages and sizes and all over the place. Okay, good. So check your objectives. Stay focused. How does that hit you? Stay focused. We haven't heard from Jake for a little bit here. Stay focused. Maybe it's because you're not staying focused. You're thinking about what's going to happen this weekend.
Stay focused. Anything going on, make sure you're listening and staying focused on the task at hand.
Okay. So, can you guys think of any examples of where you have a group of people meeting to discuss something and you're not focused? Where does the conversation go? Anyway, how many times do you get together and you're here to work on a homework problem or something with a group, and before you know it, you're talking about the weekend, you're talking about this or that, and you've spent 45 minutes jibber-jabbering about nothing, right? And you really need to get this homework done to turn it in by midnight, right? So staying focused is a principle of converging. Carson, did you have something to add?
I was gonna say like you're more focused on the Easter egg hunt instead of the dinner.
Okay, yeah, instead of the dinner, yeah. So we might start to get distracted with, well, we have church and we gotta set up the eggs, and all of a sudden that gets away from your objective of coming up with the Easter dinner. Okay, so those are our principles. We'll leave it there and pick up on Monday.